the language, the world, the cleverness, the wit. There is nothing I don't like about this book. Seriously. I think Lies is probably in my top 10 favorite books ever. Maybe top 5. This is from Patrick Rothfuss, and he says there's 3 things that this book specifically does better than Name of the Wind.
Oh.
3 things specifically.
I can think of more than 3. Welcome everyone to the Ramble podcast. My name is Richard.
My name is Austin.
Today we're talking about a good book.
Good one.
A good book. Finally.
Why can't you just leave suspense and be like, oh, is it a good book?
They see my face in the thumbnail. We're talking about The Lies of Locke Lamora. It's a great book, actually, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Hell yeah. Now, someone's clicked on this video. They see it. What the hell is Lies of Locke Lamora? Who is that? Why is that? We're here to tell you. This book, it's written by Scott Lynch. Great author. And this was his first book ever. Did you know that?
Impressive.
His debut novel, and this is it's the first book of a series called The Gentleman Bastards. Now, what do you think of that name as a series? I mean,
yeah, it's a great name. That's one of the, when it comes to series names,
yeah,
there's a few people that kind of like, they drop the ball a little bit. I like Red Rising, but Pierce Brown, he needs a better series name
than the Red Rising saga.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Okay.
It's like Red Rising. They have good titles, but there's no like saga. The Wheel of Time is a good like series.
The Song
name.
of Ice and Fire.
Stormlight Archive. These are good names. The Gentleman Bastards. That's up there.
How does it feel that you're only half the name? You're a bastard, but you aren't a gentleman. So the Gentleman Bastard series, it's 3 books are currently out, okay? 3 books.
Along with, there's some short stories in there, but 3 main books.
Yes, and the 4th book is coming out. We don't know. It's
been a while.
It has been a while. Scott Lynch, the author, has gone through some, I think, anxiety and some certain issues, but he has not published the last book. It's been, I think, a decade. Don't let that draw you from not reading the book yet, because this book is actually finished. He hasn't sent it to the publishers. It's in a good stage. Like, the book is pretty much written. So it's looking positive. He's talking good about it.
I actually didn't even know that.
He's not. Yeah, he's saying it's like he just hasn't sent it out, or he still's looking it over, that kind of thing. He might be trying to. I don't know. I don't want to speak for him. All I know is I trust him over George R. R. Martin. That's all I'm saying. That's it.
That's some bold claims, because they're about the same, aren't they? It's been about a decade for George R. R. Martin. It's been about a decade for Scott Lynch
and
as well.
Patrick Rothfuss. He's in that trio. But out of, like, if you're thinking George R. R. Martin, you're not reading Game of Thrones because you don't think he'll finish, you don't think Patrick Rothfuss will finish Name of the Wind, that series, King Kill Chronicles, Scott Lynch is the most likely to finish, and he will get at it. I believe.
Fair enough. Keep that positive.
Let's get into Richard's brain. Let's dissect. Let's go where no one wants to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not even I want to go there.
Now let's do it for a second and be like, Rich, spoiler-free review. Okay. Spoiler-free. What are your thoughts on The Lies of Locke Lamora?
I think The Lies of Locke Lamora is quintessential modern fantasy storytelling, and I think it's a must-read if you're into modern fantasy. It's a heist book. It's also a something else that I don't want to get into because then it's kind of spoilers. But the banter, the love the characters have for each other, the dynamics between them, the world building, the interesting view of being the small guy in a large magical world, it's all fantastic to read. I really enjoyed the book.
You like the fact that this protagonist isn't your typical hero chosen one with a bunch of powers. It's Locke Lamora is a thief.
You're not NPC level, but you're like 1 degree removed of a fantasy NPC.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
I see what you mean. You're a tertiary character in this huge world.
Exactly.
So I have a little blurb here to try to convince people out there to read Locke Lamora, Lies of Locke Lamora. You want me to say that real quick? The thing I have prepped,
you wrote?
I wrote this, yeah.
If you wrote it, I'm not a big fan.
Here's my pitch, okay?
Yeah.
Lies of Locke Lamora, this is what it's about. Locke Lamora's parents are dead. And in the mysterious island city of Camor, which much resembles a medieval Venice, things aren't so lawful and pretty. This man called the Thief Maker takes in orphan children just like our protagonist, Locke Lamora, and provides these orphans food and roofs over their head. But in return, these kids must go around the city stealing and thieving in order to bring in a profit for our Thief Maker. The only problem, this Locke Lamora kid is too good at stealing. In a heist book, imagine that. And he's too good at stealing and coming up with schemes, which is causing our Thief Maker to have one too many problems. So the Thief Maker decides to sell him off so he can be somebody else's nuisance. And the man he sells Locke Lamora to sees this kid's potential and decides to take him under his wing and train him to be the best thief the world's ever known.
That was a good pitch. A lot of info in there. I don't know about you, but for the guy who's crazy about spoilers, was a lot of details.
That's the prologue. That's the prologue.
What if someone didn't want you to spoil the prologue?
Or the first sentence? Our first lines video was spoilers. So that is what Locke Lamora is about. You said it exactly right with this is your quintessential, even heist. If you're looking for a fantasy heist, Locke Lamora is going to be everywhere. It has over 200,000 reviews on Goodreads. That's reviews. I think it has more ratings than that. It just has a lot. Or it might be 200,000 ratings. A ton of people have read this book. It's when you're looking at the fantasy sphere, it's Mistborn as a heist book, Locke Lamora. But what Locke Lamora does, that second thing you don't want to spoil yet, is it's a heist book with another story element / trope / archetype that comes in later. It does that really well. So it weaves that in. Would you say that Lies of Locke Lamora is better than 1,000 Deaths of Arthur Ben?
No one says Arthur Ben.
Oh my God. If you guys didn't see our review of Arthur Ben, don't read it. Sorry to the author. He's probably a great guy. I'd want to have a beer. Maybe a water. He's not beer worthy. So, no, but in all honesty, Lies of Locke Lamora, heist book. I just mean when it comes to heist book, there's not a ton you can think about. In the fantasy genre, Mistborn and this come up all the time.
Basically.
And
I wanted to ask you, though.
Oh, ask me away. I'm ready to be asked.
What did our patrons think about this book? When we actually had this as our book club book of the month. If you're interested in joining our Patreon and joining our book club, go ahead, click the link down below. And it's a bunch of fun. Get exclusive access to our Discord. It's a ton of fun.
Hell yeah. Everybody was 100% success rate where people really either liked it or loved it. Where we had Coop, one of our patrons said, it's one of the easiest books to recommend because people read it and just go, yep, good book to great book. We had Hafrican and Nick. Inés, they all enjoyed the world building, the charming characters. Teapot, she said she read this book when she was 17 and it was one of her first books and it was her favorite book. She's read hundreds of books since then. I'm like, man, does it still hold up? She went back to reread Lies of Locke Lamora and it held up. So that's all great to hear. We had, everybody was saying it. Sorry I didn't mention you, but there was a lot of people in the call and everybody really liked it. It was very, very positive. And this book actually has a 4.3 on Goodreads.
That's a great score on Goodreads.
It's a great score.
Especially for that high amount of ratings that are on there.
More importantly, what is your score, Richard? What's your Rambler rating for the Lies of Locke Lamora?
Official Rambler rating is an 8.15 out of 10.
That's a great score.
It's a great score.
Very good score.
I think anything above an 8 is a mandatory read.
Oh, yeah. Well, I gave it... Oh, I didn't pass your test, but I gave it a 7.8. I gave it a 7.8.
A still good score. Real good score.
Real good score, and I think we're both around the same area of saying recommend.
Yep. Go ahead and read it.
And if you don't want to listen to us, not just our patrons that read this, but there are some very big authors and other booktubers that had a few words to say about the Lies of Locke Lamora.
Go ahead and share.
Including Patrick Ruthus, including Pierce Brown, Mark Lawrence, and Patrick Leo, fellow booktuber. I always love reading his reviews. He has great Goodreads reviews.
Oh, no. When it comes to booktuber experts, like if I'm going like, there are booktubers that are entertaining, have maybe thoughtful discussions on like something more niche. If I'm looking for expert on fantasy sci-fi books, Leo's your guy. 100%.
Highly recommend.
Expert.
Yeah.
You listen to us for just weird vibes. That's why, like, you don't come to us as experts in the fantasy genre.
No, we're noise when they're doing something.
Yeah.
Just
like they go to Leo if like, I need to know objective opinions. I need to like analyze this and have a wide breadth. I want to go to the expert, the PhD.
Yeah. He's the top of the food chain.
We are your TA. We're your teacher's assistant.
Yeah.
And he's your professor.
He's the principal. Come on.
He's the superintendent.
Well, are we pandering enough to get him on the pod? I really see you going for it. Well, this is what Petrick says. He says, The Lies of Locke Lamora, the first book in the Gentleman Bastards series, has become one of the best debut novels I've ever read. He said it.
Yeah.
Out of his mouth.
He said it, and that means it's true.
And then Patrick Rothfuss, notorious author of the Kinko Chronicles, in his review, he actually, when he published The Name of the Wind, I think that was in like 2010. Is that right? So this book, The Lies of Locke Lamora, came out before then, and Patrick Rothfuss was saying when his book was published, everybody was calling him the new Scott Lynch. Was saying, hey, he's getting a ton of comparisons to Scott Lynch and The Lies of Locke Lamora. And in Patrick's review, he went on Goodreads and said this and said, I knew it was a flattering comparison, but at the time I was kind of irked by it. I remember thinking, why do I have to be the next Scott Lynch? Why can't I just be the first Patrick Rothfuss? I'll probably be a lot better than that. I've got way more experience at it, if nothing else. And he's saying this in his review. And then he went to read the book. And after reading it once, he read it, digested it, thought it was clever and this and that. And then he decided, you know what? Years later, I'm going to reread the book. I read it the first time, I liked it. I'm going to reread it again. And in his own words, Rothfuss says, I was absolutely fucking stunned by how good it is. The construction of it, the language, the world, the cleverness, the wit. There is nothing I don't like about this book. Seriously. Okay, fine. One tiny, tiny quibble. Even so, do you know how rare that is for me to say that? Right now, in the full flush of the second reading, I think Lies is probably in my top 10 favorite books ever. Maybe top 5. This is from Patrick Rothfuss, and he says there's 3 things that this book specifically does better than Name of the Wind.
Oh.
3 things specifically.
I can think of more than 3.
Name one, Rich. You name it, then I'll say what Patrick Rothfuss says.
World building. I think the characters by far are way more interesting. Scott Lynch's. They're more charming and interesting. They change and grow. It's nice. Let's see here. Honestly, that's a big plot. Plot is actually entertaining and fun.
If you can't tell, Rich doesn't like Name of the Wind.
Not a big fan of Name
Bit of a
of the
biased party.
Yeah.
Well, Rothfuss himself says, 1, the beginning of this book, the first 50 pages especially, hook you way more and are way more interesting and stronger opener than his is. Number 2, he says the title is way better than his book is.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
And number 3, he says the cussing is way better than Name of the Wind.
I actually disagree with Patrick Rothfuss on this first point.
Oh,
I think the Name of the Wind has a better hook.
Oh, really?
I was down for the beginning part of Name of the Wind. I was hooked in.
So you can't even agree with him when he's being humble?
No.
Oh, man. Okay. So
it's the rest of the book I didn't like.
Basically, he now is praising, going, I'm glad to be compared to Scott Lynch. So it's a nice little come full circle, because not just Patrick Rothfuss, but also Mark Lawrence says every fantasy reader should read this.
Yep.
And by the way, with that Patrick Rothfuss review, it's longer than what I said. I didn't read in between the lines. It's a much longer review. You want to hear what Pierce Brown said? Just to show you their prose difference. This is Pierce Brown's very apt, concise review, okay? Mm-hmm. Pierce Brown says, it's not often I read a book that makes me forget I'm a writer too. This one succeeded madly. It stole hours of sleep. It wrapped me in a cozy myth. It gave me the blessing of feeling like a kid again, snuggled up with a book, wondering how the hell 10 p.m. became 4 a.m. Find, buy, consume.
He's definitely a lot more succinct.
He is, and just him writing that review just makes you go, I love your prose, Pierce. I just love the review, how it's worded. Just, amazing. Why are you giving me that look? What's that look for?
I'm just saying, like, all of the Tad Williams stands out there, like, Pierce Brown's prose is not that good.
Not detailed enough.
Yeah.
Want to get into categories?
I think we should get into categories.
Spoiler warning for The Lies of Locke Lamora. This is your chance to click off the video. Mm-hmm. Rich, you want to give any other warning? Like, what are you going to say after this? Why else should people click off other than just
they don't want to watch the video anymore?
Yeah, that too.
No, that's also it.
Okay.
Go read the book.
Yeah.
At this point, spoilers.
Spoiler time. Ready?
Yep.
Emotional impact. What'd you give it out of 10? Let's talk this book.
I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Great. I gave it a 7 out of 10.
A good score.
And now what the big things for the emotional impact. Mm-hmm. First thing, What do you think the message of the story was?
I think there was kind of two big ones that I kind of picked up on.
Okay.
First was the loyalty and friendship versus power and money.
Go on that. Okay.
So throughout this story, we see kind of two sides of the Grey King, who amasses power and amasses a ton of money to be able to get what he wants, and kind of has that feeling, but he goes, instead of a loyal partner and friend, he uses money and influence to get the magi to help him.
Magi.
Yeah, which doesn't work for him out
Okay.
well in the end. Versus, Locke Lamora and Jean are friends, that loyalty that overcomes, and Locke is able to truly depend on Jean when the push comes to shove. And then you go throughout the rest of the story. I think that there's several other examples with the nobility and how their loyalty ultimately triumphs in the end. Second one is honesty is a tool just like lies. And that at the end of this book, the last tool in Locke's tool belt is the honest truth. And he's all used up out of lies. The lies are out. So he has to use honesty. And it works.
Except for that one little thing he keeps secret to pay off his debts.
Yep.
That's
That's the thing. The best lie is the one that's hidden with truth.
What do you think is that what the book is saying about lies? Do you think that the book's making a stance on is lying good? Is there a time to lie? Is lying, because people in the real life have these moral qualms about never lie, or you can have white lies, or what's a lie that goes too far? What do you think the distinction is made in Lies of Locke Lamora?
I don't think it takes a stance on it. It's a part of this world, and but a lot of it is not focused on whether lies are good or bad.
That's how I took it too.
What you're doing with it. What are your actions? What are your intentions?
Right.
That the lie itself is not morally bad or good.
Yeah, part of it, I think what the lying did for Locke, and maybe what it did for his character, it got him to be a bit too prideful, but too cocky and confident at times.
Yeah.
So what I think at the end there, that honesty, how he just says, hey, here's what's going on. I'm being honest. There's no lie here other than that one small little lie that he kind of left there. That revealing of honesty showed their lie. I think it's saying this about lies, just to a certain extent. Lies can go too far to where you fall into, if he didn't lie so much and get too prideful about it, what lies do to you and your psyche, it led to his friends dying. It led to his pride caused Bug to die, Kylo and Galdo. And I don't think it's saying like, hey, stop lying, because it's not taking that kind of stance. That wasn't the message at the end. Mm-hmm. But I think it's trying to show a balance of there's a reason you're a gentleman bastard. There's a way to have a moral code without following the law.
Well, you're right on that, because for this book, Locke struggles, I think, a little bit. So his arrogance in the scheme. So he values the game. Money is a tool to him. It's not that he particularly values money, but he values that he got a lot of money. They take pride in their hideout and their grand riches and all their things that they're able to do.
All the characters don't even know what to do with the money. They all trust each other. Like, what do we spend it on? Rich, not like you at all.
No.
You know what you want to spend your money on.
I have lots of things I want to spend
behind
on.
The camera, there's a bunch of crap we don't. It's just, why?
Don't need. We use it all.
What is that?
We use all of the tech behind this podcast.
Because you made it so that we had to.
Look, we thought, hey, do we use OBS? Oh, no, my computer's not good enough to do it. Do we upgrade the computer? Whatever. That's another conversation. Beside the point, Locke's arrogance and power trip gets his friends killed. The fact that he is valuing the game over his friends. I think you can make that argument. He does love his friends, but he puts his friends at risk, unnecessarily so sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
For the sake of the heist, the game. Mm-hmm. And that gets him killed. And so at the end, like, he does have to pay, like, the cost of throwing away all that money. And that's the lesson of that his obsession with the game, his obsession with money, got his friends killed. So he has to throw that away as penance.
And then this book, when you're mentioning this, his friends and that advantage he has, where friendship versus the power of the Grey King.
Yeah.
That theme of power and what did you say the other one was? Power and money?
Yeah, so loyalty and friendship versus power and money.
Okay, so loyalty and friendship versus power and money. How do you think that ties into, or what this Lies of Locke Lamora, the tone of the world, the tone of everything?
The world is grim. The world operates on power and money.
Yeah.
Locke and his friends have a sense of loyalty and friendship and real love between them. And that's why following them is more enjoyable and not as grim a tone. But to give a parallel example, where if the parallels between the Grey King and Locke, they're the two sides, then you have Jean, which is Locke's right hand, and then you have the Magi, the Grey King's right hand for this story. And when it comes down to it, when Locke needs Jean, after Jean's beaten up, he is brutalized, he comes crawling in and anything he could do, he tries to save Locke, even though he's broken and battered. Take the Magi. When he's beaten and let go, ultimately, he is let go, but he's beaten, brutalized, all these things. He doesn't go crawling back to the Grey King to help him or warn him or do anything. He just leaves and abandons him now that money and the tides of change are not with him.
Right.
He runs hiding.
Oh, there's the loyalty that Jean has.
Loyalty.
Yeah.
The loyalty of Jean saves Locke in the end.
Yeah.
And ultimately, all the Grey King's money was not able to keep the Magi with him.
Right. Right. You could learn something from that.
Yeah. Thanks. Hey, I don't have money to give you. That's a lesson of necessity. If I had a way, if I could replace my friendship with you with money, I do it. I don't have the money to replace our friendship.
I know you would. That's why I said it.
Okay. Once I get the money, you're telling me I shouldn't replace the friendship with money.
I just know money's looming over this relationship. And I just know the second, like, if we get a sponsor reaches out, like Libro.fm that you love, and they're like...
They haven't reached out. I have been... That's the biggest one.
Plugging them every video.
Free plugs to them. I love their thing. And they should reach out. They should sponsor us.
Just use them anyways. They're great.
Yeah, just use... the best thing, screw DRM. Screw all the other companies that are trying to keep you on their own platform and like control what you own. Libro.fm actually gives you your thing. That's simple. When you buy a thing, you then own the thing.
So
lovely.
You know what's going to be awful for just our videos in general? Is every video we're going to have to not just mention Patreon, also mention Libro.fm for free, and then also mention the merch that's coming out, and then also the actual sponsorship we get. We're gonna turn into a podcast light. Like you get a podcast every now and then in between the ads. Like we talk in between some big ad rolls is what's going on.
To be fair, that's just YouTube in general now.
Yeah.
It's just chock full of not only do you have YouTube's ads, then you have the ads within the ads and the videos and the Sorry. I'm sorry that we participate.
I hope YouTube times this with like an ad right before this or cuts. Like, you know,
good. Yes.
That'll be great. Whatever YouTube gods do it. Well, let's go with the characters. Ready?
Okay. What'd you give it?
Oh, you're asking me?
I'm asking you this time. What did you give it?
Thanks, Rich. I gave it a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10.
Yes.
Same as Emotional Impact.
Yep.
I gave it a 7.75 out of 10.
There you go. Now, do you want to... we obviously should talk Locke first.
Sure.
Locke Lamora and why our ratings seem to be good, not excellent. I'm curious about you because I thought this would be a disagreement. I thought you would like the characters a lot more when I finished the book. I thought you would go, oh, these are really great characters, and I thought I'd be more the odd one out. Because this is what I heard beforehand, that, you know, Frodo and Sam, forget them. You've got Locke and Jean. You've got these excellent fellowship, and that's what the core of the book is. The pole of this book are the characters. And they are not bad at all. They're very good and competent. But why didn't you give it higher first? And what kept it from going higher? And was Locke a part of that?
Locke is not a significant part of a lower score.
Okay.
It's everything else.
Okay.
However, when you're talking about the forget Sam and Frodo,
Yeah.
Locke and Jean, that whole brotherhood and like great bond, mostly comes into the second book. I think second book is the Locke and Jean story. It's great, and it really tests their friendship and the push and pull, and you really see them shine.
Is the second book better than the first?
I don't know. It's pretty equal to me. It's close. I think I would lean the first book is better.
Okay.
But the second book is very, very good. I don't want to give any more spoilers than that.
Let's zone in on Locke then and his character. Then we can go on what characters didn't do it as much for you. Because what I have for Locke Lamora, we can agree. He's quick-witted, clever, but doesn't play every role, which is extremely important. Where you have your protagonist character, where I think one of our issues with Arthur Bed, for example, was he seemed to play multiple roles. No, he didn't, but yes, he did. In a way.
He didn't play every role, but he played a lot.
A lot of roles. And that's where you see some bad movies come into play and bad books is where your protagonist doesn't need their fellowship because they could do everything. Mm-hmm. Locke Lamora is extremely smart and witty, but he doesn't play every role. And he actually, the thing I loved about Locke's character is he actually was smart. Like, think of some of these ruses and scenes, and where Scott Lynch really impresses me with the things he's able to come up with is, here's one scene, for example, where Locke Lamora is giving Kappa Barsavi, when he collects money from all of his, what are they called? The Kappa and Pesos. You have the Kappa and you have the Pezon. The Pezon. Do I have that right?
Sure.
So the Pezon has to pay the Kappa, and he will purposely give the Kappa less money certain weeks. He'll give less money, which seems counterintuitive, but Kappa Barsavi goes, Locke Lamora, I know I can always trust you because everybody else, when they go and make more money, they always give me the same amount every week. Because when they make high amounts, if they're making a bunch of crowns, they'll still give me the same and they'll jip me out of that money. But you, Locke, I know you're honest because you'll give me less money. And when you give me less money, I know when you give me more money, you're being honest. Like that whole, it makes sense. It's just the way that Locke does the counter, not psychology, the counterintuitive word I'm looking for.
Yeah, the main thing is all the other gangs.
Reverse psychology, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. But all the other gangs play pretty obvious. They're not.
Yeah.
When the Kappa, Kappa Barsavi, he sees them doing a big scheme. Like, hey, that gang over there did a big heist. That they pulled a big job, and then he gets the exact same amount. It's like obvious,
right?
Where Locke, all of his schemes are really low key. They're not extravagant, so they're not popping up on the radar, and he's socially aware of how his actions are viewed, and so he gives proper.
Well, then he does have those big schemes where it comes to Don Salvari. It's
the
Don.
That's not advertised. That's the key. It's
under they're not. They don't say anything because they're embarrassed to. And what I liked about that is he didn't just go for the normal ruse of getting the Don. And that whole scene we'll talk about in plot. But I thought the really intelligent thing where you get into Locke's character is he goes the extra step of pretending to be the guards or pretending to be warning the Don about Locke Lamora's scheme. Like, hey, Locke Lamora is not Master Fay Wright. He's a fraud. So Locke Lamora in another disguise is saying the other disguise he's in is a liar, and that's actually Locke Lamora, so that they can get more money out of that. I can't even explain it right, but if people have read the book, they know
he knows that it's
layer deep to extract every dollar. Much like we do to our patrons. Just, like Locke Lamora is a role model to be followed.
How to squeeze them for every dollar they're worth.
Oh my goodness. It's wonderful. Like, he's my hero. But last thing that I'll let you talk about Locke, I just had this last thing to say about the description of his character. This is how he's described when he's introduced in the book. And what I really like with his descriptions and how they interline with the personality of the character. This is what he says. Locke was a medium man in every respect. Medium height, medium build, medium dark hair, cropped short above a face that was neither handsome nor memorable. He looked like a proper Theron, though perhaps a bit less olive and ruddy than Jean or Bug. In another light, he may have passed for a very tan Vadran. His bright gray eyes alone had any sense of distinction. He was a man the gods might have shaped deliberately to be overlooked. So that description that's set for you, go, he's the perfect thief.
Yeah.
Your NPC.
Yeah.
Your tertiary character. You look by, much like you, Rich. People look by, never remember you. Just glance by.
See, when they glance by me,
they see the reflection.
The shine off my head gets in their eye. Yeah.
The beacon. It's like, of Gondor. Oh, the lights have called. Come to Gondor's aid. It's just... Okay, so Locke Lamora, what do you think about that respect? Sorry, I rambled a bit.
No, you hit all the... I agree with you completely on all that.
Really?
The things that I want talked about, it would be Locke's wants,
flaws,
flaws, and needs.
Okay,
so
let's talk about his flaws.
Sure. His flaws, I think surface level, pretty obvious, is he's arrogant and very stubborn to the point he gets his friends killed because of it.
He likes the game so much, he gets this pride from it. And even at first, I noticed some of the flaws were, well, why he was sold in the first place by the thief maker. He was a bit reckless.
Well, reckless, and given several opportunities of like, you're doing well, like, what do I have to give you to just stop?
Right,
like,
right.
It's not he's desperate in need and he's doing these things for some other reason. He just really likes doing it, and he likes doing it just to prove that he's better.
Imagine, look, no, I don't mean this as a joke, but imagine honestly if an alcoholic was addicted to stealing instead. Yeah. I think there's an actual term for that. Kleptomaniac, you got it.
Yeah.
So imagine being addicted to the game itself. That's that's his flaw.
Yeah. And so now why does he want, is he going for the thrill? Is it for the pride aspect of it? And what he needs is temperance. That's what he needs. And probably a bit more honesty in there, but that's later. But
you're right.
There's several moments in the story where you know he loves his friends and family, his new found family. There is a love there. But sometimes you just kind of have to question, does he love the game more than he loves his friends?
I think he realizes that too late, where after his friends die. Like, none of this is worth Bug, Kahlo, and Galdo dying. Mm-hmm. That's where it comes. So makes perfect sense as a character. And do you think that, now we can actually talk about it now, but we'll touch more on plots, but that revenge aspect of the story is where he starts to move his character. That's where the arc begins to complete.
Yeah, because it's no longer a game.
Right.
And it's very much a revenge survival story. And in that case, pride has, because in the game, in all of the ruses, the end goal is not just money, it's the pride of a job well done and that satisfaction.
Right.
Where now, with revenge, that's not the end result. That's not the end goal, is pride and a job well done. It's, no, he needs to go in the ground, and we need to win. And in that case, honesty was a great tool. Right. Honesty doesn't work in a ruse because it would spoil the pride.
Excitement.
Where you basically let someone else win. Take the glory, like you ask for help. Then he doesn't win.
Right.
In this one. So it's a good change. So that's why this is a really good book on its own.
Yes.
Is he has a lesson to learn.
Right.
But let's get into some of the other characters.
Well, the Fellowship first.
Oh, the Fellowship. Okay.
Yeah, let's get into those characters. So you have Bug, Kahlo, and I always flip where the D is. It's Kahlo and Galdo, right?
Yeah.
So you got your Fellowship. What do you think about them?
That's where I'm not giving like a 9 out of 10. I liked them. Enjoyed them quite a bit, but absolutely felt. So when Bug, Kahlo, and Galdo die, I'm not bawling my eyes out over their death. I'm sad because it's a loss for Locke and Jean, not necessarily sad that Bug is dead.
I'm not emotionally attached to him. Would you say it's accurate? This is what I feel. I like the idea of them.
Yeah.
I like the idea of them, and I like that Jean, Jean is the muscles, and he's very loyal. And I like the flashbacks we get where Jean and Locke initially had they're butting heads and they make up back when the eyeless priest is with them and still alive. I like those scenes and moments. And hey, they have their chant together. They look great as a unit. Much like I'd say, no spoilers. This is not spoilers for the book at all, but Stormlight. This is very early on, but there's the team Bridge 4. Mm-hmm. And Bridge 4, I like the idea of Bridge 4, and that develops as the book and so forth further on. But similarly, I like the idea of the unit, the gentleman bastards. At least with this
they have moments that shine.
Yes.
Both in action, where Locke knows his team, he knows his friends, and he's able to utilize them properly to their strengths.
Yep.
Awesome. Also, the camaraderie when they're together, and you see it on the their banter back and forth implies a great history.
Yep.
All the stuff there. But all of that said, I just didn't emotionally connect with those characters the same way I did Locke and Jean.
I loved Bug's ending, like his final lines, and it was touching. Of course, not bawling your eyes out. I think one of the things I was a little confused about with the character reaction was Kahlo and Galdo, when they died. Locke Lamora, I realized Locke Lamora didn't see it. He found their dead bodies, but he seemed to grieve Bug's death a lot more than he grieved the brother's death, which, yes, he saw Bug die before him, and there is that emphasis on it, but the brothers that he's been with since he was a child, I felt like these two brothers were a big part of the story, and they were a big part of the Gentleman Bastards. For some reason, when I'm recalling reading and just going, oh, there wasn't, like, Locke didn't super think that, grieve them a ton. I just had that feeling.
Mm.
Did you?
Do you think, now was it intentional?
Maybe.
Was it an element of pride? Of the reason why Locke was sad about, or more upset about Bug's death, is that Bug was like his
trainee,
responsibility, he trainee, that it looked poorly on him. Right. Where Galdo, like, they were more established, they're their own men, and the fact that Bug is dead, like, that's Locke's fault.
That makes sense. And also, to the reader, we're supposed to emotionally connect with Bug more because we see him die before our eyes. Mm-hmm. So there's supposed to be more on edge there. I can see that being the case for sure. So it confused me a bit with the Fellowship and just going, this was a band of brothers. Like, when your best bud dies and it's all over, I bet you'll grieve me one day. Unless I kill you first. It depends. What kind of look was that?
I was just thinking about it, just pondering, imagining,
smiling,
just fantasizing.
So, yeah, the Fellowship, I don't know how to put it more in words. And like you, it seems like we're both having a trouble explaining why it just wasn't amazing. I bet, like you said, Jean and his relationship get way more developed in book 2. But other than, it's not that nothing, maybe to put it this way, it's not that something was wrong. It's just there wasn't something exemplary.
I think I have it.
Narrow it down.
Where you really fall in love with a character is kind of the emotional roller coaster journey, is where you see the characters butting heads and like at their throats and then become best friends. That's when you're just so involved in their relationship. With Kahlo and you'll have to Galdo, that you kind of see them, and for the most part, them and Locke are just kind of chill. They're fine. Like, you start at the high and then they die, and it's like
you find out in flashbacks that they are.
You find out in flashbacks, but it's not. And even in those flashbacks, I would say that's not.
I get you.
They don't have a bunch of.
So
conflict.
Maybe it was missing that conflict, missing that tension that would have paid off much more.
Yeah, when characters become friends and you see them go from either strangers to great friends or enemies to great friends, that relationship is more meaningful to the reader. Versus,
for example, I'm going to bleep these two out, but and then the other one. So I bleep those out, but those two examples is exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So the reason why you probably feel more for Jean as well is you get a bit more of their conflict in the beginning, in this, especially the flashbacks. The flashbacks more focus on their butting heads anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. So for the Fellowship, good.
Yeah.
The idea of them is great. Then how about the villains? I guess we could categorize 3/antagonist/villains here. Mm-hmm. Kappa Barsavi, the Bonds Mage and the Grey King. I want to talk about the Bonds Mage first, and something that I think we both enjoyed about the Bonds Mage, and why you think this is a really cool, unique fantasy book, is the Bonds Mage, part of the world building we could talk about, is just this oppressive magic.
Yeah, so as far as characters go, there's not much to him other than just oppressive terror. Like, there's no hope. If the magic gets a hold of you, regular people are screwed.
Right.
Like, maybe, like, even if you kill them, maybe you're able to trick one of them, kill them. And if you do that, all the magic people are going to come out and kill you. Like, no hope. It's a hopeless endeavor. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. So I think most of him is in that world building thing we'll talk about.
Okay, we'll talk about it later. Because then what about Kappa Barsavi and the Grey King? Which one stood out to you more? Did you think they were extraordinary villains? Did you think there was something missing?
It's almost like all the best parts of a villain split into two people.
Oh.
You get what I mean? Kappa Barsavi had the suave, had the character, had just like the personal connection to our hero. And then the Grey King had the mystery, the ambiance, just the fear factor, the intimidation.
Imagine
you know what I mean?
Yeah, imagine if Locke Lamora was as fearful of Kappa Barsavi as you were the Grey King. Mm-hmm. Part of the tension, the conflict you're talking about, the Fellowship, is also there for Kappa Barsavi, where Kappa Barsavi likes Locke.
Yeah.
On his team. We're Kappa and Payson.
Locke is mostly neutral with him. Like, generally positive, but also just, he's lying to him, but he's not.
Sure.
But he's not super friendly. He's not friends with him. He doesn't really care, just like he cares about his family.
Oh, sure thing, yeah.
Versus the Grey King, you see him become the enemy in that book, and I don't know. So the Grey King is Locke's enemy. For the Grey King, Locke is an obstacle.
Yeah.
And an annoyance for the most part, but not particularly his enemy.
One issue I had with the Grey King, maybe, is that the mystery behind a monster, the mystery behind the villain, we talk about this with horror films, of it's not as scary, and the idea of the monster is more scary than the monster itself. So for the Grey King, this mystery of who he was, and this badass who had how much money to get the Bonds Mage, I think the reveal of who he was and how he got the money and what kind of guy, it was like a revenge story for the Grey King, really humanized him to a point, not empathized, didn't make me think like he's in the right. It humanized him to a point where he no longer was this giant menacing Grey King. It was a beatable human for Locke Lamora. And so,
sure. Do you
agree with that?
Yes. Yeah. Add on top of that the ending fight, the fact that Locke, the actual physical fight with the Grey King. I get you're kind of supposed to have but Locke being, the string being that he is, having any sort of fight, even though the fight was mostly him just delaying him and trying to trick him.
Yeah.
Felt a little off, that he shouldn't even try to have a fisticuff fight with the Grey King.
Right.
Seems off to me.
Right, yeah, and in plot, I think in plot, the end, we'll get that in plot, but
sure.
with the characters for the positive, I think Locke's solid. It's very solid protagonist.
Yep.
Maybe we had some, just like the idea of the Fellowship, one more negative point. They're not bad villains. They were just villains that held their place and propelled the plot, and that's all good. Mm-hmm. My favorite characters, and this is Robin from the Patreon. Shout out Robin. I agree totally with her on this. My two favorite characters are the Thief Maker and the Eyeless Priest.
The Eyeless Priest is my favorite character.
I even mean more than Locke.
Oh.
I mean that. Locke's a good character and all, but the two characters are... You go on first. Why is the Eyeless Priest... Is he your favorite over Locke?
Yeah.
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 Something about their dialogue, their tone they bring to the world, and that underground, they really give you that gentleman bastard feel of this immorality but at the same time a code and go ahead.
It's frequently done in fantasy of like the criminal's code, like the honor among thieves and all. And it's normally plays a joke and it's not handled properly. This one, it actually is true. Like there is a code and they follow it religiously and they believe in it. And there is a type of honor to it.
Yeah.
I find it really interesting.
And the fact that the eyeless priest is the training he gives to Locke and all these kids. Yes, he's a thief. And yes, he's lying to people. He's doing all this, but it's kind of that not anti-hero. He's not really a hero of the story either. The gray character. Is that the right term? Whatever the right term is.
Yeah,
he's in the middle where you watch a scene to just go, oh, you know what? He's still giving the kids a home and he's teaching them life. Yes, he's teaching them how to steal. That's not good, but
also a lot of life lessons and just like they have a better education than a lot of the nobles.
Yeah, better than New Mexico where you're from. You complain to me all the time about your education as a kid. So.
Thank God we're not Mississippi. That's the only thing.
Hey, you're number 49. You'll get there.
Sometimes 48.
Hey, what other state do you beat occasionally?
Is it Louisiana?
Maybe.
Sometimes Louisiana's low.
But hey, all we know, the eyeless priest, he's at least right above there.
He's above there. He's giving them a solid, better education than New Mexico.
And something about it makes it somewhat acceptable because when the suspension of disbelief in this world, again, don't want to get too into it, but Nazca, the kid character, when she's a kid and Locke first sees her, is drinking alcohol at like 8, 9 years old, which... Again, real world, yes, it's wrong. But when you're put in the tone of this world and you realize what the society is like and what's acceptable, it makes what the eyeless priest is doing more acceptable compared to what the Grey King's doing. Or it's all the perspective is what makes the eyeless priest so good.
Yes. In a world that this one the world that we're placed in values life as very, very cheap.
Yeah.
Life is cheap. It's grim. People don't... that's the best way to put it. And the eyeless priest does value their lives. Values them as people. Right. And treats them well.
The eyeless priest...
Comparative to everyone else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the eyeless priest could be a villain in another book.
Sure.
If he was the worst of society and it was just, everyone's chilling, having a good time. There's this priest who's lying to people to siphon money, to get sympathy from everybody and teaching these kids how to steal. That could be a bad character. But in comparison, if we learned anything from books like Mort, perspective matters more than the reality of the actual thing you're doing. Mm-hmm. Because if you're the best of the worst, you're still the best.
Well, think about when as far as the money goes, like he's having these kids steal. In many ways, it seems it's more focused on the religion than the money aspect of it. So what does he do with all this money? He turns around and invests in them again and gives them opportunities. And what is he spending the money on? He dresses poorly. He lives this role as the eyeless priest. He's not like being gluttonous with his money. He's not buying expensive things for his... Like, when he buys expensive things... He's sharing with them. Like when he has a very nice bottle of wine and everything, he shares it with all of them. It's not
he's not uber selfish. There's something about him. It's
not like he's having them all steal this money so he can go on some resort or buy some big boat or whatever.
His actions speak for himself. Because that's the great thing about him and the Thief Maker and a lot of this dialogue. Again, I'm getting too far ahead of myself. But with the dialogue and how their actions tell you who they are. Their actions show you who they are. They'll talk the talk. They'll kind of push the kid. They'll say some lines that they don't mean. Or they'll be brutal with the kids. I mean, for both the Thief Maker and Eyeless Priest. Thief Maker's more of a bad guy. But
he's closer to the actual bad guy.
I just mean in the sense that the way they talk to the kids, and you're set up in this world, so that's the expectation of how people talk, and especially it's a thief world. The way that he talks to the kids and says some things that it's almost like a father playing with his son and teaching baseball. Or
Teaching them boundaries.
yeah, teaching about so playing baseball or playing. Let's say you're playing a board game with your kid. This is what my dad did when I was a kid. He taught me chess at the age of 3, and he would beat me 10 out of 11 games. But that 11th game, he would let me win once, just so he'd keep my interest. And then I'd be like, oh, I just beat my dad. Then he would be like, all right, he's getting too prideful. Let me beat him 50 times. And then I'd start crying. He'd be like, more. You need to learn the lesson. So what the Eyeless Priest seems to be doing is pushing the boundaries of these kids, saying some things, but letting them also be free agents of their own. It's a really weird relationship. I think Locke says it best. He says something about, I don't know how he ended up with these insane, scary, delightful people. Something like that. And that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, I'm agree with it. I love their characters. Every time the Eyeless Priest is on the page, I'm having a fantastic time.
Yeah. His dialogue. So
I do think I have to put Locke over him. Like, I enjoy Locke's style, but
that's fair. I put Eyeless Priest.
If the Eyeless Priest has as much page time as Locke, then yes, he'd be my absolute favorite.
Fair. You want to go on the plot?
Yeah.
What'd you give plot out of 10?
I gave it an 8.5 out of 10.
Very strong. Is this your highest
Very strong
category?
I believe so. This is my highest category.
Okay, I gave it a 7.5, higher than characters and emotional impact for me, but still didn't break the 8. As in, I still thought it was real good. What you rating it that highly? What floored? Maybe not floored is the right word. What really got you going? This is great.
Mainly, it's the big thing is shifting from a plot, shifting from a heist plot
Yep.
to a revenge survival plot. Right. And the interweaving of it was full of what Trey Parker always talks about with and then, or therefore, not and then.
Right.
The entire time, you don't know where the story's going at any point because a twist happens and it completely changes the direction of the story, and I never knew where we were going, and that was exciting for me. Loved that. All the parts made sense.
Yep.
At the very minimum, it all made sense and it was coherent. Maybe I would be like, oh, I don't know if I like this. I can nitpick some things that maybe didn't work as well for me.
Yeah.
But they all made
coherent.
So coherent.
Yeah.
And add on top of that of what this plot does is not only is it coherently woven together, it also ties in the character's story. It gives great character journey for all of them. The world building feeds into the story and vice versa. There's not when it comes to weaving the story, he doesn't have big exposition dumps and throw off the pacing. You're exploring the world and it's well sprinkled in.
Would you say that the intermissions threw off the pacing for you at times, or did you like that it was chapter on, chapter off for intermission, then current, intermission, then current?
I liked it more often than not, mainly because the chapter that was the flashback chapter often gave us great context for the present day chapter.
The best example of that was my favorite moment where it flashed back and went to the present again was where we found out what the Bonds Mage did and how they destroyed what the Theron area. They basically burnt everything except for a single chair to remind people of the destruction and chaos, and no one messes with Bonds Mages. And then in the present day, Locke goes, "Nice bird, asshole," to the Bonds Mage. Or he said something like that, and just to show Locke Lamora's characters emphasized, because you just found out what these Bonds Mage do, and he basically gave him the bird to the bird. So you're going, whoa, oh, okay. That's done really well.
That happens several times too, of how is Locke going to get out of a jam, and they have a great prequel of like, you see where the skill comes from, and so you have a hint. It's almost like a Zelda game, where in like Ocarina of Time, you're going through the game and the level gives you a certain item. You get the hook shot, you get the grappling hook, and then later on the boss is like, oh, to beat the boss you have to shoot the grappling hook at the eye and everything. The book does that exact same thing of you get the flashback chapter of you learn a little bit of Locke's skills and a lesson that he learns then, and then you get to present day and go, that's the skill he learns to beat the guy. That's just
It's great.
it's not that difficult of a concept.
No.
But it's just satisfying to read. It makes you feel smart. Like you filled in the blanks.
Oh, yes. It's that whole thing of progress, pay off. It's like, oh, I read that. It's paid off.
It's mini progress and paid off.
In the whole story.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry that one of our patrons, I think it's Coop, that said this. I'm so sorry if I got it wrong because it might have been somebody else that was saying this, the same plot structure here is just like the movie Slumdog Millionaire. Have you ever seen it?
Long time ago.
It's same thing of where he's on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and he has to answer questions on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and it shows flashbacks to something in his life that showed him how he knows the answer to the question. So same thing of like going back and forth, present day, just like Locke's doing here. And to stay in promise, progress, payoff of the whole book, I would put it this way. I want to see what you think of this, and we can get specific. Okay. I thought it was a fantastic promise. I was in, especially the prologue. Loved the promise. I liked it was real good progress. And then I thought it was a fine payoff. It was satisfactory payoff. And that is where my more 7.5 out of 10s come from. We could break down where and what and why. But I went from fantastic promise, good progress to decent payoff. Good. I was satisfied.
I think I was more excited with the progress than you, but I do kind of agree with the payoff, maybe as a touchdown. But there is one moment that was essential to me for me to love the payoff at the end of the day. The reason why I'm giving it so high is mainly if this was just simply the revenge story, I don't like if just Locke won at the end. He beat the bad guy. He beat the Great King and he goes off. Fine. What makes it special and just so complete is that the death toll where he sinks he gets them to sink the ship with all of it, his gold, all their gold, all their stash, and he sinks that to the bottom of the sea.
Right.
And perfect. That's the perfect ending that was needed for this story. It tied it the message. The character felt like really learned something and paid the price. It was, I loved that part of the ending. It was my favorite part, and just it worked. It also paid all the way back to the very beginning. The homage of like the whole idea of the paying a death toll. What did they call it?
The death toll. Ooh, beats me.
It's not death tax, but
no debt. Unsure.
But that was amazing.
Yeah, there were moments of that parallel structure where you also had the wait for Jean moment where he hugs the Grey King in the end. Like, I just have to hold you, wait for Jean long enough. Where we got flashbacks earlier of waiting for Jean. So the moments of him burning the ship with all of his gold on it, and then at the very beginning getting like, oh, you have this debt to pay off. Those moments that just the payoff is there for these high key moments, which you definitely felt because it went. I read this whole book and it feels like it wasn't a waste. What this plot doesn't do, it doesn't waste moments that don't show up later for the most significant part. But I want to go quickly to Promise first, because before we get to the end of the book, the Promise of the world, why I think we both loved it so much, it sets up this world perfectly in tone, that grim light tone of it's a grim world, but you have these light characters and you have this kid Locke Lamora with a lot of potential, and you want to see where he goes. And of course, you have the Thief Maker and Eyeless Pierce, which were some of my favorite characters that elevated it. But that point of Locke owing a bunch of money and the inciting incident really starting with the book is, I think it was the moment where they start the ruse against the Don Salvara. And that ruse is starting to begin in the book. We got our introduction to the world, but something about that promise hitting so much, it expanded for me on what is this world that we are in? Why are kids treated this way? Why the hell did this thief maker have to sell this kid? What did he do, and how did he kill these kids? How did he kill these guys? Because that's the story. The Pierce said, "Hey, the thief maker sold you to me. I want you to tell me how you got those kids killed, or those whoever they were killed." And we're like, whoa, what is Locke Lamora doing? So the mystery and the curiosity is there. Had no idea where the book was going to go from that, because the reveal of the eyeless priest, not being a whole schemer himself is fascinating, and you're going, how did he put up this scheme? Who is this guy? What's their connection? I was in for that promise. Mm-hmm. You're in a total agreement, I'm imagining. Yeah,
complete agreement. I mean, the reveal of the eyeless priest being a fraud himself was just perfect.
And then when we get into the progress of the book in that middle portion, the best moments for me were Locke's schemes and the things I couldn't think of. When you feel like the director, the author is smarter than you, which 99.9 are, unless you write a book. Okay, if 100% are unless you write a book, then 99.9% of authors are. Okay, and it's the case where all these schemes and ruses he's coming up with are like, oh, that's how you would extract more money out of the Don. You pretend to be the guards. It's really satisfying plot moments of going, yeah, and it seems very efficient too. It doesn't seem like wasted time of that's a more complicated plan. There's an easier way to do that.
Like Arter Ben.
But you get what I mean of that moment where the first portion of the plot, I would break it down this way. The plot is, in simple terms, this. The rusing against Don Salvaro with the wine, which was really cool for a lot of reasons. And then there's the midpoint of where the Grey King starts to emerge, and Locke gets into predicament in the middle where the Grey King wants him to pretend to be himself, the Grey King, and Kappa Barsavi says, I want you to show up to face the Grey King. So he now has to be in the same place and two people. He has to be two people at once in the same place, and that's our big conflict at the moment. What do you think of that?
I personally believe that's the inciting incident.
No way.
Everything before is status quo. The reason I say it is like the scheme is really entertaining, all this stuff, but
sure,
the world, like, there's not conflict. That's what they do. Like, there's not a big change for when they're doing their main scheme. It seems like everything's working out, everything's fine. They've done this before, and then the real change of the story, the moment that the characters have to change, is when the Grey King comes in.
Well, I don't think it's just the change moment, because the inciting incident usually has to happen much earlier. And especially with the moment of change is the world before, the characters we're getting before, with Locke Lamora as a kid and with the Thief Maker and the Eyeless Priest.
You could look at it that way, but we also get
the
the present day as well at the exact same time. So I don't know if those are also the characters before.
Right.
So that's kind of how I saw it, where up until the Grey King, you're kind of seeing like their status quo and what they are like before, and you're just getting accustomed to them. And then the Grey King throws everything into a wrench, and now you have the new story.
I was seeing the starting conflict as the first the first heist we're seeing him doing. It's like, hey, before we know he's learning, he's doing this, like Locke's doing these smaller schemes, he's getting in trouble, he's a bit reckless. They're older now. After we got the picture of this world, what's the first heist? Well, neither here nor there. Sure. Both these things happen in the plot. What did you think of that big conflict moment where he has to be in two places at once?
It's just exciting.
Yeah.
I didn't know how he was going to actually do it. I mean, ultimately, it's very not simple, but logical solution of you got to get out of the Kappa's plans, fake your sickness and all that. Like, fair enough. But also how quick that went. Like, I thought that would have gone on longer. You know what I mean? Like, the Grey King would make him do that multiple times. The fact that it was just wrapped up immediately.
I was surprised.
And that was the Grey King's way of getting rid of Locke as well.
Yeah.
So get rid of Locke and also make the Kappa think that he got rid of him, and basically to surprise him later. Mm-hmm. Good plan. Good plan on the Grey King. Get rid of an obstacle and keep your enemy in the dark, and make your enemy think they beat you. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty good plan.
I will say the plan from the Grey King the plan from the Grey King that I thought was a little bit strange to go through all of that. Locke made the point to the Grey King of, hey, you could have just taken my money. You didn't have to go, like, you didn't have to kill my friends and do all of that. Like, why are my friends dead? You literally could have taken the money. I would have never seen you again, all this. And his response to that was, like, a thief always a thief wouldn't let me take, or what's the exact line here? He says, what thief does not fight to hold what he has? Which makes sense. Like why would a thief, you'd want revenge on me then? But in hindsight, I just think there was the villain had to go through extraordinary measures to go like way overboard to kill this side character Locke, who in the Grey King's perspective, Locke's kind of like potatoes.
And also, but think about this. Is this a flaw or is this a feature? That the Grey King went through exactly what Locke went through. Of the Grey King, his position was stolen, his family was killed, and it's a revenge story.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, why does he not think that Locke would do the exact same thing?
That's to me in my head of what I was thinking of going, he's went through this, and he's doing the same thing to Locke. Maybe that's to emphasize the message and so forth, but I guess I didn't understand the Grey King's character enough and his backstory of why a big reveal with the Grey King and who is he? And one plot thing that was moving me is what's this mystery of the Grey King? Why is he doing this all? Who is he? And then the reveal comes. It's like, it's a revenge story on his end, which we don't understand entirely. And then he does the same thing to Locke. I didn't get the logical connection of why he thought that was the smart thing to do.
Well, maybe it was more a delaying tactic. So what did the Grey King do? He went off and he prepared for years, building up back his money and his assets and his ability, all this stuff, and then came back. Locke got up in round 2 and just went after him without any money, with most of his friends dead. And also the Grey King thought Locke was dead too. So it's like, it's first, hey, let's just kill him, which is the smart decision, get him out of the way. But then also, hey, let's kill the rest of his family. So even if he does get revenge, he's going to have less people to help him. And if he gets revenge, it's going to be years from now, not now, which is the troublesome time. Maybe that's it.
Yeah. I guess, again, it's not a... I think, you're more right. It's not that it doesn't make sense. I guess I wanted more from the Grey King.
Sure.
So it might be just more of I don't get in his head, and it's the villain, of course. It just seemed like a very extreme measure. He's the villain, right? But
you have other villains, which will be they'll beat down the hero, but then not finish him off when they have the chance, and they should. Where this one, Grey King's not taking really any chances of, no, I'm going to... Locke is a potential obstacle. I'ma kill him and his all of his friends.
Yeah.
And take all his money. I'm doing it all. I'm wiping him out.
Right.
And so he goes to the extreme level because he doesn't want anything getting in his way.
Yes. And he needed that 40,000 white crowns to pay off the rest of the bonds mage, right? So that's why he needed the money. I guess I agree with you. I agree with you. My emotion wasn't there, I guess.
Sure.
And with the ending, I think the payoff portions of it that hit real well were, like you're saying, him burning the boat and getting that debt in the end. So if it was just revenge, you're totally right, wouldn't have been as satisfactory. My more qualm with it, I guess, or how it wasn't super, super satisfying of an ending, good book, of course, was brought up when we were having our discussion before of the statues being the final boss moment of this being the grand plan by the Grey King. I think you want to say your idea that you had that would have tied in the plot.
Yeah.
That really convinced me to lower my plot a little bit because it did because I was thinking why this whole grand plan with the Grey King, and really that focal point, the payoff is really down to the Grey King and his plan and Locke versus him.
Yeah.
And this is this moment of where these statues come into play. Go ahead, explain that.
So, for those who've read the book, the Grey King's ultimate plan is to take down these nobles, and so he has the poison petrifying device inside these statues that once they break, they release this gas over the gala, which only would get the nobles and some regular people, but Grey King doesn't care about a few innocents in the way. But it's kind of just thrown in there, these statues and the mechanism and all this stuff. They did set up... Scott Lynch set up the petrifying poison before this in a flashback. And so that's kind of set up. Mm-hmm. But what I think would have been better, because the Grey King was involved in kind of ruining Locke's plan with the wine,
Yeah.
that it would have been interesting that one of the wrenches thrown in is the Grey King's ship brings a big shipment of this special wine, which basically shows like, hey, Locke was lying, that there is no wine. And maybe Locke would be like, actually, no, I've been planning this heist. Like, there shouldn't be a shipment. Like, there is a actual delay. There is a problem. Like, how does the Grey King have this? This wine shouldn't exist. And realize that the poison is put in this, special import wine, and that wine is given to the gala.
Because our heist story was focused on the wine, and then it would have felt like that was like the whole wine sequence was a lot more paid off. And the information we know Locke has would have solved the problem. I love that solution.
Yeah.
I just love how it ties in with the heist story and the revenge story. Because another thing, a part of it, the ending was the convenience of it. I think Orcish mentioned this as well, where the ending felt convenient in that he had the option to either save the people or go after the Grey King. That's how it was kind of proposed by the Bonds Mage. If it's either this or that, and he gets to do both, which is good and fine. It was it seemed like the easy way out of less. There were less consequences. Of course, we had consequences with Bug dying and some of his fellowship dying, but the end moment was this or this, and that's the conflict. That's the decision you have to make. What are you going to do? And he has this fight with the Grey King and wins, and the people are saved, and he pays off his debt. Good that we get the happy ending, but I guess I was expecting what I was promised from the book was more of a tumultuous it's this grim light, so I thought it was going to be a bittersweet end. And we got the bitterness with the deaths that didn't impact us as much because of what we mentioned in characters. But I guess I imagined the ending chapters, that ending climax portion to have a bittersweetness to it, of like the villain to have some upper hand or something where Locke doesn't get everything in the end. That's what I was expecting, though, because of how I read into the story. Do you agree with that? Or
Kind of, because I have more of a problem with that ending fight scene with the Grey King.
Sure.
The fact that Locke is trying to just go fisticuffs with him,
Yeah.
even though, yes, Locke is not winning. He's just delaying.
Mm-hmm.
It's just still weird to even have Locke fight at all, I think.
Because he's not a fighter guy.
He's not a fighter.
He's the ruse artist.
I would think the Grey King would just wipe the floor with him in like 2 seconds. Because the Grey King is a pirate. He has a lot of fighting experience, I would think. But, I would think it probably would make more sense that Locke saves the people, pays back his debts, and causes financial harm to the Grey King. But the Grey King lives. And Locke and Jean have to leave the city because the Grey King is there. They can't continue. But that's the way to escape. I would think that would be the choice that had to be made. And that would probably be more satisfying.
Sure, because I guess you could argue the bitterness at the end is like they pissed off a lot of the Khmer elite, so they can't stay.
All their friends are dead.
Yeah,
all their money's gone.
Yeah.
They pissed off the Magi. So they're probably going to get some heat for that.
Exactly.
Things are not great.
It's not that bad things didn't happen. It's the order of it, and it's that feeling of I felt too sweet in the final chapters and portions where, yes, there's conflict leading up going into the second book of they did piss off the Bonds Magi. Totally. So how are they going to solve that issue? But the conclusion of this book is very much in the same way. However, I'm wording that. But I want to say a good thing because the plot is I love the ruses. And
it's so tight.
It's very tight. And I like the back and forth, just like you do, of the intermissions in the present day. My favorite part about the payoff in the end, although maybe the portions that didn't were the Grey King and some of those that we just talked about. But I loved seeing Locke at 0 again and having the ruse's way to get remember Margio, I think was his name, but having the ruse's way to
get the clothes.
To get the clothes, the waiter clothes, to then get in front of Margio, to that step of going from he has no resources at all and him having to build that up.
Well, it just shows his skill.
Yes.
He, even with nothing, Locke has his mind, and Locke actually is incredibly resourceful.
Yeah.
Like, you can take everything from him, but you can't take his skill. That's fun.
Exactly.
But also the satisfying payoff of Locke with no money, very few friends now. Everything's out. The last tool he has is to just bear himself open to the spider and go like, just say like, hey, look, no more ruse, no more lies. Here's the plan. Here's what's happening. Please help. I don't want everyone to die.
Yeah.
It'd not be great.
And
that worked.
Moral of the story too.
And to win, Locke had to give up the thing he cares about most, which is the game, the heist.
Yeah,
so
it's definitely good, solid book. And I don't mean to harp on harshly too much of the ending, because it was satisfying in a lot of the sense. But you want to move on to dialogue and prose time.
I am,
because this is a moment. What did you rate that out of 10?
An 8.25.
I gave 8.75. 8.75.
Great banter, great description. It interweaves of, you get characterization of who these characters are. You understand more about the world through everything. Mwah.
Yes.
Great writing.
The unique voices as well at the same time of your thief maker, the chains, the eyeless priest. And I want to refer to this one moment. One thing that Scott does masterfully, I think his dialogue is like 9, 10 out of 10, and his prose is like real good. But the great parts of Scott Lynch are his dialogue and how the characters speak. And this is from TW_IAN on Twitter. And he put a blog post about this that I think perfectly illustrates all of Scott Lynch's prose here and what he does so perfectly in his dialogue. Mm-hmm. So here's a line where the thief maker held up 3 crooked fingers as though on cue. "Business," he cried. 3 items of business. And so the blog poster is saying, so he progresses through these first 3 points, as it's left to the reader's imagination to see him counting these off the twisted digits. Then, once he's gone through his 3 points, he sums it up like this. "The rules are simple. You'll learn them all in good time. For now, let's keep it like this. Anyone who eats, works. Anyone who works, eats. Which brings us to my 4th... Oh, dear children, do an absent-minded old man the favor of imagining that he held up 4 fingers. This is my 4th important point." And then the blog poster explains there's no description of action here, but it's so easy to imagine that 4th aimless finger twitching. Like through the dialogue, what this blog poster is saying, through the dialogue of what the thief maker's saying, you can imagine what he's doing and what movements he's making because of the words and the attention what he's saying to the kids. Mm-hmm. And he does that all the time with different dialogue, not just the thief maker doing that, but all sorts of characters are saying things that are giving you visualization of what's happening in the scene around you. And doing both at once is awesome. So
you don't have to have he said while walking across the room. It's
while twitching the 4. A worse author would have held up the 3 fingers, stopped the dialogue tag, and been like his 4th aimless. The what do you call it when you don't have an extra limb?
Amputated?
No, not just amputated. It's like that starts with a V. Damn, we're so bad with words.
What are you talking about?
When someone doesn't have an arm, vestige. Vestige. That I quickly got to it, but a vestige, missing finger. They would have paused the dialogue, explained all the visualization, then got back to the dialogue. Scott Lynch does it just like that.
Yeah,
that's the best
That is
part.
impressive. That is really good.
Did you notice anything else that made his dialogue or prose really impressive? Because that's the thing that stood out to me beyond anything else.
No, that's right there key. Then also it's proper interweaving of world building with the scenes instead of having information dumps. I don't think he really ever does that, because his version of an info dump would be the flashbacks, and the flashbacks are just an interesting beeline story. So it doesn't feel like an info dump. But to be fair,
it's story.
If you consider the flashbacks info dump, half the book's an info dump.
Right.
But it's done in such a way that it doesn't feel like that.
It feels plot focused. It feels like you need to know that to understand what's going on in the rest of the plot.
Also, you're not stopping. There's a story being told there at the same time. It's just interwoven.
Yes. Now, do we have the same favorite, the favorite dialogue portion of the book, the chant?
Oh, yes. I love it.
I have it written down of what makes why I love the idea of the Fellowship so much. Maybe not the specific characters in Pop, but you just got this brotherly feeling of the Gentleman Bastards, where they have their saying that they do when they're drinking. They go, "I only steal because my dear old family needs the money to live." "Liar!" they chorused in unison. "I only steal because this wicked world won't let me work an honest trade," Caldo cried, hoisting his own glass. "Liar! I only steal because I have to support my poor lazy twin brother whose indolence broke our mother's heart," Galdo elbowed Callo as he made this announcement. "Liar! I only steal," said Jean, "because I've temporarily fallen in with bad company." "Liar!" At last the ritual came to Bug. The boy raised his glass a bit shakily and yelled, "I only steal because it's heaps of fucking fun! Bastard!" They all yelled. Just reading that scene to me just gets me going. What a cool way to get your fellowship together and just feel like they have a history. Because when you show a tradition, he didn't explain, again, the efficiency of the dialogue here. He didn't explain, they had a chant that they've done for decades. Now you just go right into just saying the dialogue and having them chant goes, they've done this hundreds of times. And it fills in the imagination gap in your head. And you go, that's lovely. They feel whole.
Well, also, it's just, they seem like fun.
Yeah.
They're fun people. I want to have drinks with them. They sound great.
They do. But not with Arter Ben's off. No drinks.
No. What did Arter Ben have that's anything close to that? What did he do? What did he do with his companion? What was his friend's name?
Rock, I think, or Rack.
Rack?
Yeah, I think Rack.
Did they have any tradition thing that they were like?
No, probably. I don't know.
I don't remember anything.
You want to hear more good lines from Locke Lamora? Let me give you some more good feels, okay? These are some of the best lines according to Goodreads. "There's no freedom quite like the freedom of being constantly underestimated." Nice line. "There are only 3 people in life you can never fool: pawnbrokers, whores, and your mother. Since your mother's dead, I've taken her place. Hence, I'm bullshit proof." Pretty good line. Another line of, "You can't help being young, but it's past time that you stopped being stupid." Nice. And lastly, this is a good one. "If reassurances could dull pain, nobody would ever go to the trouble of pressing grapes." Isn't that neat?
Okay, that's a fun one to think.
Isn't that fun?
That's really good.
That's really fun. That's it. So I'll stop hammering those lines. I always like to find out best lines from books. Those are some of my favorites. It's some of what Goodreads highlighted. You want to go lastly into the world building / magic system.
What did you give world building?
Well, Rich, I'm honored to tell you, I gave it an 8.75.
Fantastic. I gave it an 8.25 out of 10.
Great.
Fantastic.
So I'm in the stance of, I think the world building dialogue were the best portions of this book. Seems like you thought the plot was, but you also really loved the dialogue and the world building.
Yeah, I think the plot was just so well interwoven into the world building.
Oh, I can't argue.
And so it's really hard for me to separate those two.
Sure.
But if I want to get into the world building, I think we can agree on the 2 best aspects.
Oh, let's see if we do. Okay.
2 best aspects.
2 best aspects
was the Church of Thieves, just the whole religion behind it, everything about it, and the Bonds Mage.
Bonds Mage. I agree.
Are we kind of in agreement?
I agree with you with number 1, Bonds Mage. Number 2, we disagree.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
My favorite world building moment was that 2 or 3 page chapter about handball.
Oh,
do you remember that?
That was pretty funny.
I know you're actually right. I just really love the handball moment. That was just a real fun.
It was a great example of just how brutal the world is. It's like,
and the Comor. I love how the different society or people took it. Or the whole handball story. Very quick summary of, they had this handball game and one side won. And there was a bad call of you were over the line or whatever. And 35 years passed. And this Komori who lost goes to the guy who made the bad call or whatever and kills him. And there's this whole story. It's explained way better than I just explained it. But the takeaway from that is all the others, the Valdens, all the people think this is a story that's told to people because the Komori are all goddamn crazy. The Komori, when they tell the story, they're proud and they go, it's a reminder against procrastinating in matters of revenge. I'm just, if you can't take satisfaction immediately, it's the virtue of having a long memory that really counts. So the Komori, this thieving world takes this as yeah, you're damn right you got them. And everyone else is like, these people are nuts. So it just gives you that extra twist of that's where our characters are.
They are crazy. They're nutty.
And it makes it, I guess that's what makes some of these immoral gray characters so much more likable because you're in a world like this. And when we were talking, we kind of glossed all over the place when we were talking about tone. Mm-hmm. But maybe one of the best things about this is the tone's perfect for the book. For what's going for. It's you can place this world and know what characters fit in this world, and also the descriptive settings as well. What do you think about the world itself and the false light?
Oh, just the setting of
Yeah.
I loved how this world has so many other details and interesting aspects that we will never read about. We'll never see.
Nope.
Because that's for like big main characters. Like, I can see a totally different story taking place of like a fledgling, like, your farm boy, your innocent vagabonds that learns that they actually have magic powers, and they're in this.
They're a bonds mage,
and they find out that they have a rich lineage to the old civilization, and they're having like all the bullshit of like your main fantasy adventure story.
Sure.
And we're never gonna get that, but the world could work in both. It fits both types of stories, and now we're just getting the NPC, the side characters main story. So we'll never find out because Locke doesn't give two shits about like the ancient past, the spires, and anything of that.
There's this ancient society of what the Eldrin are they called?
Yeah,
and they're the ones that created, and the bonds mage are trying to say they have the magic of the Eldrin. And this ancient society that you can't destroy these false lights, that you can't destroy these, what is it, crystals? And what is that? It's like, imagine being cavemen and the pyramids are next to you. Like, what was this society?
Yeah.
That's a cool...
And Locke doesn't care at all.
Not a cent. Not a cent. And we're getting this low perspective of the world where it makes sense that he doesn't care. Mm-hmm. He's at such a low strung of he's thieving around. Like, we're not supposed to know exactly what the bonds mage do.
Why care about the bonds mage when like the only thing you should be worried about is staying the hell away from them? There is no scheme. Like, Locke doesn't have a scheme for them. There's nothing like, not even in his wildest dreams does he ever think like, I'm going to go scheme the bonds mage.
Yip-de-dee.
No, absolutely not. Even Locke's arrogance is like, no. We're going to stay far away.
Yeah.
So
and that point of the bonds mage creating this threat that you typically don't see that in a book.
Yeah.
That's so freaking cool. And so your favorite one was bonds mage, and go on the other one that I cut you off with.
I love the church. The Church of Thieves.
Go on that. Yeah.
It's perfect.
It is great.
I'm thinking of other fantasy religions, and often it'll just be like a spin on Catholicism or a spin. I don't know. It's just normally not that fun. Where this one, it has its own unique rules, and it's ridiculous because it's the Church of the Thieving God. But also, they all take it seriously. And because they take it seriously, you take it seriously. And it's fun. Like, normally, you'll often get, like, being opposed to the certain religion. Like, the religion is normally the enemy. In this case, it's on the good side. It's weird.
Is it wrong to say the church is a character?
I guess kind of wrong, because it affects all the other characters. But what you're thinking of, Father Chains, he imperfectly encapsulates the Church of Thieves.
Yeah.
And I love it. We talked about the death toll.
Yep.
We talked about how you're supposed to steal, why you're supposed to steal it.
The eyeless priest who is as a character moves the world building in so many ways, where all the lessons we see all of our characters go through. There's these small things. The best part about the world building in this book is beyond the big things. So we know the bonds mage are memorable. the Church of Thieves is memorable. All these big things, the Eldrin, the False Light is memorable. I had to put tabs in the book as I was going just because I wanted to remember to bring up a couple things. But there's the small things you'll never remember. Like a year, 2 days from now, we won't remember these details, but in our head it churns and goes, that's what makes it a complete world. Like, for example, Father Chains, there's a moment where he's tapping his index finger of his right hand against his left palm, the Komori marketplace gesture for get on with it. Something like that, right? It's not a big deal, but then you have little things like that where there's flowing, when someone's signing something, they're flowing lines of ink above the seal, her signature in the curving Theron script that had become something of a fad among the literate nobles in the past few years. Then you have another small thing where when he's teaching the kids at the Valdrin dinner party, Glado, he would, if he was at a Vadran dinner party, he would hold out the chair for the Vadran without invitation. He would hold it out to be polite. But a Verari lady would stand beside the chair to show they want it pulled out instead of you pulling out before they come. The ladies in Verari would go up to the chair first because they don't want, it's impolite to assume they want to sit down. So it's these little tabs that I put in of, you'll never remember that detail, right? It's just a super small thing and it's not that important. But it's those small details make the world and put you in the head of the suspension of disbelief of Scott Lynch thought down to the detail of the signature signing above. This was a fad lately, and not to mention this was a bigger part of the plot. But the wine being important in this world, all these little things that add up in your head that are hard to describe when you think back. When you think back to Lies of Locke Lamora, you'll remember those big things, but the further you get away from the book, I don't want to forget those moments of, this felt so expansive because he touched on everything and it was so subtle. I just want to give props for that.
That's great insight on it. I wouldn't have brought that up.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. Can we just end the podcast? No, not the episode. let's end it on that.
We're having good vibes. Today's just a positive day. It's great.
Let's see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye.